But to do that, you have to have an industry that has to be here, that has to be working here. We can't be the lab, as I said, we can't be the laboratory of the Chinese module system production. So how can we, if President Obama walked in here and he would actually understand the conversation, what, as with the other candidate, I'm not trying to.
We can't hear you back here.
I'm sorry, the question is, it's a classic, when you go into see an American senator, he always says, what do you need?
There's a time gap problem here, and that is, what do things cost today, and what is the competition, if you will, of the utility pricing? There are certain states where you can have $4, $6 install pricing and be very competitive to the utility, and we always go to Hawaii as that example, or Puerto Rico, or wherever. But there are places like Kansas that are a nickel, that you sit there and say, I need help. And what you need is sustained support, not one-time support, although the 1603 helped a lot. But if you're gonna finance this thing over 12 or 14 years to make it competitive to a nickel, you need the support, because there's no way that you're gonna get down at today's prices. Now maybe 5 years from now or 3 years from now, when you have an install price of $1.50, completely installed, then that becomes another viable solution. But you have a problem of what's today and what's tomorrow.
Just really quickly, one of the problems in Hawaii, I'm familiar there, it seems to be the incumbent.
Yeah.
Period. I mean, the systems are all there, the lower cost is there, it's just there's no way to buy out the incumbent provider. Could I just suggest quickly that I thought the best approach here was to do a teardrop approach where you spread out where the high energy costs are. I mean, if Kansas is happy at a nickel, then leave Kansas alone and invest in New York.
Well, we do that by financing, but that doesn't suggest that Kansas doesn't need it. I mean, Kansas is a problem for financing. There's no two ways about it, but it doesn't suggest that they don't need solar or wind or anything else.
Is the strategy of of bringing the policy panoply to bear and attracting investment at the higher cost energy areas of the country, is that what's happening?
Or where the incentives are sufficient. We have 13 states that we focus upon for financing, and in the U.S. Virgins and Puerto Rico and Guam. We've also done financing in places like Costa Rica, where electricity is something like 35 equivalent cents per kilowatt hour. Those are easy for us to do in a competitive environment. But the fact is that 13 states in the United States right now either have a high price of electricity or sustainability and incentives that allow us to look at them very seriously on a financing basis. That's all.
Mark brought up the challenge I think is the biggest one in the industry, and that's for small commercial projects in the 50 to 500 kW or 50 kW to a megawatt scale. It's real hard to bring, especially tax equity, into those projects at this point in time. And I'm wondering if you could talk to the second bullet point on your outline here of standardization, and if there's any examples of a Sunrun type effort at what is potentially the largest market in the country of this small to medium-sized commercial, and who's standardizing that financing and making it available on excuse me, on a project by project basis?
You've touched the nerve. I think that's a real difficulty. I mean, you've got it exactly right. I mean, if you look at kind of what's happened with California installations over time, the share of third-party finance for residential solar has increased tremendously, and it hasn't changed. The share for third-party finance for commercial hasn't changed at all. When people kind of talk about these portfolios that Sunrun and SolarCity are building with debt and with a tax equity investor behind them, Usually what they're talking about is basically very big residential portfolios. When they talk about the Solar Strong program, used on military homes, it's a residential program. I think that this is a very tough challenge for commercial development.
But
Why isn't
why
that
isn't that happening? Why isn't that happening? If you can do it with houses, which seems like crazy money, why can't you do it on commercial?
Bear in mind with the residential portfolio, first of all, you can diversify the risk a lot more than on a kind of commercial. When you're kind of pulling together just pieces of a commercial portfolio, I think that the point where you're kind of looking at commercial PPAs, then each one of the PPAs has to be examined individually by the financier. Whereas I guess with residential, it doesn't need to kind of be so much direct inspection of every single lease that's signed on a residential basis.
To answer, one of the things that we do is we create a capital pool, for example, for an EPC or a vendor or for a GC. And we create individual, if you will, LLCs for each project, but there's a holding company that allows us to cross-collateralize across those individual projects. And so when we build a organization, we typically don't do one-offs. We do a variety of one-offs for a particular entity and then cross-collateralize them, which makes our investors and debtors feel much better about the cross-collateralization design that we do.
Yeah, but I'd actually agree with you. Okay, I'm sorry, we met before, but I don't remember your name.
Fred.
Brett. The whole ITC thing, my adventures during the course of last year has really wrapped around what you do from 1603 to my future. Okay, we managed to solve that solution, but the obstacle that's always been in the way is the ITC. Somehow, Solar City and Sunrun have been able to do it at the residential level. At the level that you go, I'm sorry. Somewhat on this, Solar City and Sunrun have been able to take that ITC solution and make it work at the residential level. At the level that you do megawatt or bigger, utility scale kind of stuff, no problem with the ITC. But when it comes to doing commercial, where you can actually make a significant impact on small business here, abroad, whatever, that ITC is not an effective tool. And I wish that, I think it was Charles from the Treasury just walked out. I wish he could hear this. All right. My question back to you guys, and hopefully if Charles comes back, is why is it an ITC? Why not a tax credit? The ITC is actually a very, very non-liquid vehicle.
You mean, why isn't it a grant?
No, I want a tax credit, a straight tax credit.
You mean a liquid
non-investment
tax credit?
Oh, a liquid tax credit.
Yeah.
Oh, do you mean
The term is refundable.
Refundable.
ITC is investment tax credit. What you want is a refundable.
Right, you want to be able to.
I don't want an ITC. I don't want it attached to investment.
You keep saying that. ITC is the way that IRS defines these tax credits.
My
Sorry, to
understanding-
be clear,
Yeah.
are you advocating for something that's not based on CapEx, but based on performance? Or are you advocating basically for liquidity on the tax credit?
Yeah,
I want the tax credit to be something that any one of us can take advantage of. As far as my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, I want you to correct me. An investment tax credit is only available to you as an individual or a business if it's going against the return on an investment, that revenue that